Greetings viewer, you join me aboard the new BMW 330e based on the latest generation of the 3 Series, the G20. Now normally the plug-in hybrid version of various cars isn't usually the pick of the range. However, for the BMW 330e, I think that might just be the case. I'll run you through its specs. So it's got a 2-liter engine, the same one you find in the 320i, which makes 181 horsepower. However, in the 330e, it is paired to a 111 horsepower electric motor that is built into the gearbox. Together, they deliver 288 horsepower, and peak power is delivered between 5,000 and 6,500 RPM. Being a plug-in hybrid, battery capacity is quite important, and BMW has increased it from 9 kilowatt hours, which was what the old car had, to 12 kilowatt hours. 12.4, although usable capacity is somewhere around just over 11 kilowatt hours. The gearbox is an 8-speed automatic. The fuel tank has just 40 liters capacity, so it's smaller. The normal 320i or 330i has a nearly 60-liter tank. This car sprints from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.9 seconds and on to a top speed of 230 kilometers an hour. It is Euro 6, the latest Euro 6D emissions regulations compliant, and it returns a claimed between 1.4 and 1.9 liters per 100 kilometers, but you're never going to get near that unless you charge it regularly and the petrol engine doesn't start. Compared to the 320i, this 330e is around 200 kilos heavier, although it hides its weight pretty well, and even through the corners, it doesn't feel any more cumbersome than that car. It's actually a really sorted handling thing. In fact, it's probably the sportiest and most enjoyable plug-in hybrid at any price point. Well, excluding the new Koenigsegg Gemera, which is awesome, but we're excluding that and others like it. The 330e has to be the best plug-in hybrid for reasonable money, as I'll explain. The 330e is undeniably the best plug-in hybrid if you want to drive quickly and if you want to enjoy your car on a twisty road. Before we set off, I will run you through this car's extensive list of options. So the base price with VAT is 48,254 euros in Romania, the local market. And its total price is 69,264 euros. So the automatic electric trunk is 500 odd euros. The tinted rear glass is 410. The sport seats are 564. The Harman Kardon sound system, which is amazing, it's one of the best on the market, is 922. The 18-inch rims that this car doesn't have because it's running on its 17-inch winter tires, those are 2,245 euros. The adaptive dampers are another 1,230 euros. The Parking Plus Assistant pack is 974 euros. The business class pack is 2,159 euros, and it gets electrically adjustable front seats with memory function, lumbar support for the driver and the passenger. Probably the most expensive option, based on what I'm seeing on this list, is the Innovation Pack, which is a whopping 4,000 euros. This car also has the Sport Steptronic automatic transmission, which adds another 200 euros. The Driving Assistant Professional Pack is 951, and this brings the total to nearly 70,000 euros. So that's a lot. From 48,000, which is the base price for this luxury line 330e, to 69,264. That's quite a leap. Okay, enough talk. Let's set off. As with all plug-in hybrids, you can set off and drive in electric-only mode. BMW says you should be able to drive this car in EV mode for around 60 kilometers. But even with a full battery, when I picked it up from BMW, the range meter only showed about 29 kilometers. And it's not excessively cold outside. It's like 15 degrees Celsius, 14 now. When I drove the first generation 330e, based on the outgoing F30 3 Series model, I really enjoyed it. And with a full charge in the battery, I did a 400-ish kilometer road trip in it, and it returned like 5 liters per 100 kilometers, which is pretty good, considering how much performance it has on tap. I was super impressed. And just like with this car, you didn't feel its weight through the corners, even though it was heavier than other 3 Series models. This G20-based 330e is no exception. It's really good through the corners, as you would expect from a BMW. It's definitely the most fun car in its class. I mean, executive sedan-based plug-in hybrids. There's no contest. And while the BMW 3 Series crown for being the best to drive car in its class is challenged by the Alfa Giulia and the Jag XC, they can't match it as an overall package. And the fact that this plug-in hybrid version is so good just adds to its desirability, I think. If you keep its battery charged and you drive it in the city, you probably will see a realistic fuel consumption of around 4 liters per 100 kilometers. If you don't keep its battery charged, that'll probably double. But it's still remarkably efficient for a car with a 2-liter turbocharged engine that weighs around 1.8 tons. For me, probably the most impressive part of this new 330e package is the performance on tap. This thing is properly quick, and it sounds good too. The previous one just sounded like a typical normal 4-cylinder. This one, there's definitely some trickery going on in the exhaust, because it sounds pretty raspy outside as well. The ways you can tell it apart from other 3 Series models are really quite subtle. The only dead giveaway is the charge port located on the front left fender. And the only other indication that this is the plug-in hybrid is the badge on the back, which says 330e. But that's literally everything. So it's definitely subtle. You're not shouting about wanting to be green in this car. The other version of G20 that I got to drive, the 320d X-Drive, felt considerably slower than this. And while I am a fan of diesel engine, because they have huge amounts of torque, I'd actually go for this plug-in hybrid version above pretty much any other version in the new G20 range. I also really like the way this car looks. I would have preferred the lower sport suspension because it sits a bit high for my taste. But otherwise, the proportions are very nice. The car doesn't have any superfluous details. It's an honest shape. It kind of lacks a little bit of wow factor maybe, but it's not bad at all. I especially like the elongated front section with the super long hood and the wheels set very close to the corners of the car. This is a design trick that always works. It really does. It just makes a car look sportier and more planted. The new 3 Series interior is also a resounding success, I think. I drove the 1 Series a few weeks ago, and while it has pretty much most of the same buttons, the same displays for the infotainment and the digital gauge cluster, the same steering wheel, the same panel of buttons here around the gear selector, it doesn't feel quite as posh as this car. Definitely the materials are better in this 3 than in the 1. And since this car has grown compared to the previous model, it almost feels like you're driving a 5 Series. For instance, my personal car is an E90, so 2 generations behind this car, and that looks really small. It really does look like a 5 Series compared to my old E90. You still get the nice low BMW seating position, which I love, and it's one of the reasons I own one of these cars. This car also gets the latest version of BMW's iDrive system, which is the best infotainment on the market, at least from the ones that I've tested. It also comes with gesture control, and you can increase the volume, move to the next track, or pause the music. The digital gauge cluster, some journalists keep complaining that they don't like the reversed rev counter. However, I think that frees more space in the middle, and it allows the screen to have other information, whereas if it was the normal way around, if it went in a clockwise motion and not anti-clockwise, I think what this car offers that none of its rivals offer to the same level is a blend of efficiency, style, technology, and driving fun. And I think driving fun isn't especially high on many manufacturers' priority list. And BMW hasn't forgotten its BMW, so it provides fun and enjoyable cars, whichever class and the style of vehicle it chooses to create. This 330e makes a really compelling case for itself. Not this excessively spec'd 70,000 euro car, but the base car, which is around 40,000. I mean, sure, the options that I listed at the start of the video make this car even better, but they're not essential. The core experience you're getting on a standard 330e without the bells and whistles is still the same, and it might be a little bit lighter and more efficient with less kit on it. So what are this car's bad points? Well, as the listing of its optionals revealed at the start of the video, it can get really expensive if you keep adding bells and whistles respectively. You lose a bit of trunk capacity in the plug-in hybrid because that's where the battery lives. And if you compare it to a 330i on a skid pad, I'm sure that car will manage a higher speed before it loses grip and washes wide or its tail goes out. And really, that's about it. If you can afford this car, you won't regret buying it. And if you can charge it at home, it's a highly recommended car. It's definitely a compelling car for those who want a plug-in hybrid that they can have fun in. And it's also a properly good plug-in hybrid. I mean, it's a good car. It's good as a car, I mean. I knew I was going to like the 330e, but I like it more than I was expecting to.